The notice came on a Thursday, bright red letters stamped across the front. Final warning, payment overdue, legal action pending. I stood in my driveway, mail in hand, staring at the envelope like it was something radioactive. Behind me, my house sat quiet, the same modest two-story colonial I'd bought 6 months earlier. In front of me across the street, Karen Whitmore's white Lexus pulled into her driveway. She stepped out, sunglasses perched on her head, clipboard already in hand. Our eyes met for half a second. She smiled, not the friendly kind. The kind that says, "I've been waiting for this." I didn't smile back. I just folded the letter, slipped it into my jacket pocket, and walked inside. But even as I closed the door, I could feel her watching. That's how it started. Not with a fight, not with a confrontation. Just a letter, a smile, and the quiet certainty that someone had decided I was their next target. What Karen didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that I wasn't just another homeowner she could bully into submission. I was exempt. Legally, permanently, and completely exempt from every HOA fee she could dream up. And by the time she figured that out, it would be far too late. 6 months earlier, I wasn't looking for trouble when I bought the house on Maple Ridge Drive. I was looking for stability. After 12 years in the military, most of it overseas, I wanted something simple. 4 walls, a yard, a place to breathe. The realtor had been enthusiastic. Great neighborhood, she'd said. Low crime, good schools, active HOA. That last part should have been a warning. But I was tired of moving, tired of orders, tired of living out of duffel bags. So I signed the papers, shook hands, and moved in on a Saturday in late September. The neighborhood was exactly what you'd expect. Tree-lined streets, matching mailboxes, lawns so green they looked fake. People waved when you drove by. Kids played basketball in driveways. It felt safe, controlled, predictable. I liked that for about 2 weeks. Then Karen showed up. She knocked on my door one afternoon, dressed like she was heading to a country club luncheon. Cream blazer, pearl earrings, heels that clicked on my porch like a countdown. "Mr. Callahan," she said, extending a manicured hand. "I'm Karen Whitmore, president of the Maple Ridge Homeowners Association. Welcome to the neighborhood." I shook her hand, firm grip, cold fingers. "Thanks, glad to be here." She handed me a thick binder. "This is your welcome packet. Community guidelines, architectural standards, payment schedules, everything you need to know." I flipped through it. The thing was over 80 pages long. "That's quite a manual. We take pride in our community," she said. "It's what keeps property values high." I nodded, still skimming. Then I saw it. Section 12, subsection 4. Monthly HOA dues $250 payable by the 1st of each month. Late fees apply after the 5th. I looked up. $250 a month, she smiled. "It covers landscaping, security patrols, community events. You'll find it's well worth the investment." I didn't argue, not then. I just thanked her, closed the door, and set the binder on the kitchen counter. That night, I made a few calls. By morning, I had my answer, and it changed everything. The exemption wasn't something I'd asked for. It was something I'd earned. Under the Service Members Civil Relief Act and a related state statute, any veteran with a verified service-connected disability rating of 70% or higher was exempt from mandatory HOA fees in developments that received federal housing assistance during construction. Maple Ridge had received a grant in 2003. I had an 80% disability rating. The math was simple. I didn't owe them a dime. I could have told Karen right away, saved everyone the trouble. But something in the way she'd looked at me that first day, like I was another chess piece she could move around, made me hesitate. So I waited. I paid the first month's dues without comment. Then the second, I wanted to see how far she'd take it. Turns out pretty far. By the 3rd month, the notices started. "Your payment is overdue. Please remit immediately to avoid penalties." I ignored it. A week later, another letter. This one threatened a lien on my property. I filed it in a drawer next to the others. Then came the phone calls, voicemails in Karen's clipped, authoritative tone. "Mr. Callahan, this is your final courtesy reminder. Failure to comply will result in legal action." I never called back. Instead, I started documenting everything. Every letter, every voicemail, every time her Lexus slowed down in front of my house. I logged dates, times, exact wording, old habits from intelligence work. You never know when you'll need a paper trail. By month 4, she escalated. One morning, I found a bright orange sticker on my front door, notice of violation, unauthorized landscaping. I looked at my yard. The grass was trimmed. The hedges were neat. There was nothing wrong. I peeled the sticker off and kept it. A week later, another one, trash bins visible from street past allowable time. I'd brought them in 20 minutes after pickup. She was watching me closely. That's when I realized this wasn't about money anymore. It was about control. Karen Whitmore had built a little kingdom in Maple Ridge, and I was the one resident who wasn't bowing, so she decided to make an example of me. What she didn't understand was that I'd spent a decade dealing with people far more dangerous than a suburban HOA president, and I was just getting started. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in early January. I was in the garage, organizing tools, when I heard a car door slam. I stepped outside. Karen stood at the end of my driveway, flanked by 2 other board members, a man in his 60s with a red face and a younger woman clutching a tablet like a shield. "Mr. Callahan," Karen called out, "we need to speak with you." I walked down the driveway, hands in my pockets. "What's this about?" "You're 4 months delinquent on your HOA dues," she said. "That's over $1,000, not including late fees and penalties." I nodded slowly. Okay, she blinked, clearly expecting more. That's it, that's all you have to say, I shrugged. What do you want me to say? Pay what you owe, the red-faced man snapped, or we'll file a lien and take you to court. I looked at him, then back at Karen. You really want to do that? Absolutely, she said. We have rules here, Mr. Callahan. No one is above them. I smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. All right then. See you in court. Her expression flickered, just for a second, confusion, maybe doubt. But she recovered quickly. You'll regret this. I don't think so. They left. I watched them drive away, then went back inside and made a phone call. By that afternoon, I had a lawyer, a good one. The kind who specialized in veterans' rights and had a particular dislike for overreaching HOAs. Her name was Rachel Ortiz, and when I explained the situation, she laughed. They have no idea what they just walked into, do they? Nope. Good, let's educate them. 3 weeks later, the court date arrived. I wore a suit. Karen wore her usual armor, blazer, pearls, and that same tight smile. The hearing was in a small municipal courtroom. Fluorescent lights, wooden benches, a judge who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Karen's lawyer went first. He laid out the case. Unpaid dues, repeated violations, failure to comply with community standards. He made it sound like I was some kind of anarchist tearing apart the social fabric of Maple Ridge. Then it was Rachel's turn. She stood calm and composed and placed a single document on the table. Your Honor, my client is a disabled veteran. Under both federal and state law, he is exempt from mandatory HOA fees in this development. We have documentation proving his disability rating and proof that Maple Ridge received federal housing assistance. The room went silent. Karen's lawyer leaned over, whispering urgently. Karen's face went pale. The judge picked up the document, read it slowly, then looked at Karen. Is this accurate? Did your development receive federal funding? Her lawyer stammered. We would have to verify. It's public record, Rachel said smoothly. I have copies if you'd like. The judge sighed. This case is dismissed. The plaintiff will cease all collection efforts against Mr. Callahan immediately. He banged the gavel. It was over in less than 10 minutes. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked out. Behind me I could hear Karen's voice, sharp and desperate. This isn't over, but it was. Outside the courthouse, Rachel shook my hand. That was the easiest case I've had all year. I smiled. Thanks for your help anytime, and if she tries anything else, call me. We'll bury her. I drove home in silence, windows down, the cold air sharp against my face. For the first time in months, I felt light. But I knew Karen well enough by now to know she wouldn't let it go quietly. People like her never do. Sure enough, 2 days later I found another notice on my door. This one wasn't about dues, it was about a supposed zoning violation. My fence was half an inch too tall. I read it twice, then crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash. Game on, Karen. Over the next few weeks, the harassment intensified. Every few days, a new violation notice appeared. My mailbox was the wrong shade of black. My porch light exceeded the maximum allowable wattage. My car was parked 3 inches over the driveway edge. It was absurd, petty, and completely predictable. But this time I didn't ignore it. I documented every single notice. I took photos, recorded timestamps, and kept copies of everything. I also started talking to my neighbors. Turns out I wasn't the only one Karen had targeted. There was Jim, 2 houses down, who'd been fined for planting roses that weren't on the approved list. There was Angela across the street, who'd been threatened with a lawsuit for painting her shutters the wrong shade of blue. And there was Tom, the retired teacher at the end of the block, who'd been cited for having a basketball hoop in his driveway. They all had stories, and they were all afraid to fight back until now. I invited them over one Saturday afternoon. We sat in my living room, coffee and frustration flowing in equal measure. She's out of control, Angela said, but what can we do? She has the board in her pocket. Not all of them, Jim said. A few are just as tired of her as we are. Then we vote her out, I said. Simple as that. Tom shook his head. It's not that simple. She controls the proxy votes. Half the neighborhood doesn't even show up to meetings. Then we make them show up. I pulled out a folder. Inside were copies of every violation notice, every fine, every abusive letter Karen had sent over the past year. Not just to me, to all of them. We present this at the next board meeting. We show everyone what she's really been doing, and we demand a vote of no confidence. Angela looked uncertain. You think that'll work? I don't know, but doing nothing definitely won't. They looked at each other, then one by one they nodded. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. I spent the week preparing. I made copies of everything. I organized the evidence into a clear, undeniable timeline. And I practiced what I was going to say. When Thursday came, the community center was packed. More people than I'd ever seen at an HOA meeting. Word had spread. Karen sat at the front table, flanked by her board members. She looked calm, confident. She had no idea what was coming. The meeting started with the usual business, budget reports, landscaping updates, upcoming events. Then came the open forum. I stood. Karen's eyes locked onto me. Mr. Callahan, she said coldly. Do you have something to share? I do. I walked to the front and placed a stack of documents on the table. These are violation notices, fines, and threatening letters sent by this board over the past year, not just to me, to dozens of residents in this community. I handed out copies to the audience. People started flipping through them, murmuring, this isn't about maintaining standards. I continued, it's about control, and it stops tonight. Karen's face flushed. This is out of order. No, I said. This is transparency. Her lawyer tried to intervene, but the crowd was already buzzing. One by one, my neighbors stood up. They told their stories. The fines, the harassment, the fear, and with every voice, Karen's control slipped a little more. Finally, Tom stood. I moved for a vote of no confidence in the current board president. Someone seconded it. The vote was called. It wasn't even close. Karen Whitmore was removed from her position by a margin of 43-7. She sat there stunned as the room erupted in applause. I didn't gloat, I just walked out, got in my car, and drove home. That night I sat on my back porch, beer in hand, looking out at the quiet neighborhood. For the first time since I'd moved in, it felt like home, not because it was perfect, but because it was free. Karen never spoke to me again. She moved out 3 months later. I heard she bought a condo in another state. No HOA. The neighborhood changed after that. The new board president, a retired librarian named Margaret, ran things with common sense instead of fear. Fines dropped. Violations became reasonable. People started talking to each other again. And me, I just lived my life. I mowed my lawn when it needed it. I planted flowers I actually liked. I parked my car wherever I wanted because that's what freedom looks like. Not rebellion, just the quiet right to exist without someone holding a clipboard over your head. Sometimes I think about that first day. Karen standing in my driveway, handing me that binder, thinking she had me figured out. She saw a veteran, a quiet guy who'd follow the rules. What she didn't see was someone who'd spent years learning that the best way to win a fight is to know the rules better than the people trying to use them against you. The exemption wasn't a loophole, it was the law. And the moment she tried to ignore it, she lost. People ask me sometimes if I regret how it all went down. If I wish I'd just told her from the start. Honestly, no, because if I had, she would have just moved on to the next target, someone weaker, someone without the resources to fight back. By letting her come after me, I gave everyone else the chance to stand up too. That's the thing about bullies, they thrive in silence. But the moment you shine a light on what they're doing, they crumble. So if you're reading this, if you're dealing with your own Karen, here's my advice. Know your rights, document everything. And never ever back down just because someone has a clipboard and a title, because power without accountability is just tyranny in a blazer. And tyranny, no matter how small, deserves to fall. I still live on Maple Ridge Drive. The neighborhood's quieter now, better, kids play in the street, neighbors wave. And every first of the month when that old HOA notice would have arrived, I pour myself a coffee and smile, because I don't owe them a thing, not a dime, not an apology. Not an inch of my freedom. And that, more than any court victory, is what peace really feels like.